mean, I know you said everywhere, but like
lower back, definitely. Gotcha. The hips.
Sure. How's your arm feel?
A little sore.
A little sore?
The pec was a little sore too.
Okay.
But I'm going on the mound next week, Thursday. So
okay.
Friday I'll do arm care.
Perfect. Sounds good. All right, so let's do this. Let's hop up on the table, lay on your back to start. We'll just start working through your deep hip flexors and your quads, and then we'll work on your lower back a little bit too.
Yeah.
We're just gonna work on some spinal erectors, and then we'll get into like the same stuff we've been normally doing. Just working on your quads and just your hip mobility in general.
Yeah.
All right. Sweet.
Yeah. I can't tell you how much these opening up the hips really help.
I mean, listen, and that's kind of what we were getting at, right? Good arm care is body care. It's not. The fact that you're sore everywhere is a great sign, If you're not blowing off stress in any one spot, you're really using your whole body, and that's what, A, that's where more velocity is going to come from, but B, just sustainability in your sport, if you're not stressing one thing, it's
well, I feel like
huge.
also, it was so much easier to get down the mound and stick that leg and really rotate those hips over.
Perfect, man, that's beautiful.
Internal and external.
That's beautiful. So for you guys, welcome to the lab, back to session sit-in videos. Sorry, we do a little bit fly on the wall style. So we got a professional baseball player here. He's a pitcher, right-handed. So part of our plan for Matt this offseason has really been to work on his hip mobility, and that was one of his big lacking areas, right? So we put a lot of emphasis on restoring his flexion and internal rotation, especially on his front side, which is obviously his left leg. And we've seen a lot of really great results from that. It's been really, so everything we've planned out this offseason so far has kind of come true. Got anything to add to that?
Yeah, my mobility is definitely increased in areas other than just on the mound, but also in my lifts.
It's awesome, man.
And in my health, and every day.
Yeah.
I mean, even just the way to sit. Like, I used to not be able to sit and put my leg over, cross your leg over when you sit down.
Right.
Now it's no problem.
Beautiful.
And even my warm-up, with my mobility, my warm-ups, and doing just simple
being really
karaoke
specific.
and everything, and and then the hip thrust with the band, and just open up the hips really allowed my whole body feel better too.
Yeah, for sure. Now we get into this pitching phase, we can start really working on even adding some more concentric explosive work, like the band resisted jumps to your warm-up for pitching.
Yeah.
Use that kind of like we call it post-activation potentiation, where you're like kind of priming that movement. So your lateral band jumps to the stick, which you guys have done in speed workouts, but you'll start to see that as we get closer to the season. We're going to incorporate more of that kind of like rapid explosive work. Because it'll just really start to now we start to integrate all of these things that we've been working on for the last few months. And it really will, that's the best part, is when you see it all come together on the mound, which you're already starting to see.
Yeah, yesterday was a lot.
You didn't gun yourself yesterday though, right?
No.
You just kind of, the goal was just get down the mound, be explosive, and throw hard.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yesterday kind of put it all
intent.
together.
Beautiful.
All the phases of each program that I've been doing over the off season kind of all came together yesterday. And that was only the first time.
Beautiful. So for you guys at home, just to give you some context behind what we're doing actually with Matt, is right now I'm working on his iliacus. It's part of his deep hip flexors, part of that iliopsoas complex. So we noticed with Matt during his initial evaluation that he definitely lacked hip internal rotation and extension. So we've been doing a lot of psoas, quad, and adductor work with him, and it is paid absolute dividends. I mean, again, you heard it from him, but his mobility is drastically improved, and I really do think that that's going to translate to just feeling better throughout the season, having a good base to work from, and then again, not dumping all that stress into your shoulder and elbow. So as you make your way up the ladder, just having more and more sustainability. So a lot of you guys that have followed this channel, you probably have seen me do this technique before, but essentially what I'm doing is in this hip flex position, I'm pinning that psoas down, I'm internally rotating and extending his hip. So I'm basically loading that tissue as I range it through, and I find that adding that movement to the manual work really does make a huge difference. I mean, look at that. That's tonnage-wise. When we first met Matt, he was like between 10 and 20 degrees of hip internal rotation. So I'm gonna hit the other side.
My good side.
Yeah, that's it, man. And you'll see a lot with your pitchers, if you do work with a baseball population, lots of asymmetries. And I think part of what a lot of the industry doesn't understand is those asymmetries are adaptations to the sport and to your position. So we don't want to fix them necessarily. It's like okay to have these asymmetries. Just understand what the sport demand is and adjust your treatment and your training accordingly. So Matt does do like bilateral symmetrical work, but he also does a lot of single arm and single leg work, and that's kind of really, we do a lot of transverse plane training with him, a lot of med ball work. I mean, that's the kind of stuff for a baseball athlete, for a pitcher specifically, that's going to translate. And again, we do work on bringing our athletes back to neutral, when they first come back. So some of the guys come back with like elbow contracture, some arm issues. Like that's the kind of stuff, when there's pain involved, that we prioritize and get them asymptomatic and feeling a lot better right away. And then we can really start attacking some of these, down the chain mobility issues. Same thing over here, just hitting this iliacus and psoas. What were you gonna say? Go ahead.
No, yeah, never done any of this before. So
Right.
Already feeling the benefits. Really just getting excited.
Well, it's just, what it is? It's not even so much like, had you been getting manual therapy before? It's all sequencing too. It's like we specifically timed a lot of your sessions on days where you were demanding more hip mobility. So those are great opportunities for you to not only add to the range that you have passively, but then start to actively use that range, and that's what's going to make it stick and permanent for you, and so that's usable.
Yeah, and it also allowed my strength to go up because I was more mobile in the hips to get lower in the squats and all that.
For sure, yeah.
All strength exercises.
That's huge, man.
You got reevaluated last week?
Yep. Yeah, and everything just went up. Everything.
Yeah.
I was even during the middle of my strength phase, so I haven't been moving explosive at all.
So you did your performance eval again?
Yes, and then I'm gonna do it again in
right before we send you back. Yeah. Sick, man. I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah. It's really starting to all come together.
Like tonnage. Like that's what we want to see in our baseball athletes. That in between 40 and 50 degrees of hip internal rotation and flex position. So now what we're gonna do is really focus on his rectus femoris. So this is that big quad muscle that is a multi-joint muscle, so it's going to cross multiple, crosses the hip, crosses the knee, and this is going to be a source of restriction in his hip extension patterns. So again, I don't prioritize it on one leg more than the other for my baseball athletes, but I do understand that hip extension is a lot more important on this side, on your push-off leg, so when I reevaluate and look at our progress, those are the things that I'm looking for to make sure that we're making a tangible difference for him.
And I feel when I land on my left leg, so my landing leg, I can land and then straighten it out then to flexion, or extension.
Extension of the knee?
Yeah, I land in flexion, and as soon as I snap that extension, then I'm able to really get over and land firm in that ground.
That's what's going to make the difference, man.
I like how I used to, where my foot, I land on some side of my foot, and I spin out now.
Yeah, and that spinning off is you blowing off stress. That's force that you're not putting into the baseball.
Yeah, I'm using.
You know what I mean?
Useless,
You're just losing it.
Yeah.
You're losing that to nothing. So those are like the small changes, the small differences that swing that big door.
Definitely, yeah.
So I find that quads are really sensitive. They can be more sensitive than other areas of the body. Obviously, they're proximal to kind of some of the other sensory overload areas, right? So I tend to use my elbows a lot through this area, and it's more surface area for the athlete, so it is a little bit more comfortable, and it allows me to kind of sustain my pressure a little bit more accurately. So really working nice and slow, and he gets a lot of restriction kind of up at this like common flexor bundle, where his quads, his TFL, kind of all this musculature, sartorius, all kind of strings up into this common flexor bundle on the lateral aspect of the thigh. And then we'll start doing the same thing, just adding some movement to that. So that process I really like is warming up my hands, kind of get that tissue accustomed to some pressure, maybe go a little bit deeper, start with my hands, and then we're going to move to the elbow in a static position, and then we're going to move to the elbow in a more dynamic position, although I'm providing the movement for him. Am I killing you?
No.
Hurt so good?
Yeah, definitely.
You can be honest.
No,
definitely doesn't tickle,
No.
This is deep stuff.
Just getting used to it now,
Yeah, and this is, how many times have you done this now?
Yeah.
Dozens of times, so you got to work up to that depth, I wouldn't just go for the throat on a new athlete for a session. You just can't do that, because as soon as you get to the point where it's so painful that you create an adrenaline response, then you've kind of lost that battle of like toning down their neurological system too. This is really what I want to do, is get him to that like hurts so good threshold. Like right at that threshold is where the results really do happen. Right there. Feel that guy.
Yeah. And then just feel all that release.
So the next process we're going to do here is the Graston, okay? So this is a really thick bevel on this instrument. I don't know if you guys can see that, but this bevel is double beveled, so it's very soft edge, okay? So it's a lot more surface area than my other handlebar tool, and I like this better for deeper work, okay? Because I don't want to bring the skin to threshold, and I really don't want to beat up his soft tissue so much. So this just allows me to work a little bit deeper, get some of these sliding surfaces moving, and kind of stimulate those deep mechanoreceptors in the tissue to kind of help them tone down a bit more. So I'm kind of working nice and deep and slow, okay? I'm keeping contact with the athlete the whole time, okay, so that it's not constantly like disengaging and re-engaging. So I'm keeping that contact. It'll make it more comfortable for him. Am I killing you, Matt?
No.
Be honest.
No.
Scale of 0 to 10, 10 being like the worst possible pain. Where would you say this is at? 4. Right, and that's kind of where we want to be, like under 6.
Yeah.
I find like 5,
Yeah.
6 is like that hurts
Yeah.
so good. And I don't know if you guys can hear it in my voice or in my arms, but I'm pushing. Now, this isn't light stuff. I'm definitely going deep, and I think you can go deep with the tools. A, if you have the right tool, and B, if you've worked up to that acclimatization point with your athlete. I don't think there's any harm in going deeper. Again, are we breaking stuff down? Not necessarily, no, we're not. But stimulating those deep mechanoreceptors can be a huge game changer in terms of hip mobility and extensibility with your athletes.
Oh, yeah. Wait till we love you Oh, yeah.
I think you really need to know your strength stuff. You gotta know movement. If you don't know movement, if you can't coach an athlete in the weight room on a fitness or training program, you're gonna have a lot harder time tissue-wise understanding the context of what they're trying to do. So I feel like I became a much better manual therapist after getting some experience as a strength and sports performance coach.
You know.
Adductor complex. This was kind of something that we've added to his manual therapy sessions more recently. We kind of got to the point where hip internal rotation and extension were really good, but then as he started training, he started feeling that tension shift more to his adductors, which is kind of really common. You know, the adductor is like the Swiss Army knife of the leg. They do everything. Flexion, extension, internal rotation, external rotation. I mean, it gives you adduction for free, essentially. So obviously, you see I'm working him out into this lateral hip movement, flexion, as I kind of load some of these posterior adductor fibers. You know, I won't do as much instrument work here on the adductor group, not because I don't think it works well, just because there's lots of lymph nodes and like delicate structure in the groin. So you don't want to go hammering it with a tool. So I'll spend a little bit more time, you know, with my hands because they can be a little bit more specific, and then maybe use the tool for more like superficial work. So this is kind of where, I mean, like again, it's just night and day in terms of his hip internal rotation, right? So off midline, that's definitely an easy 45, if not better. I'm trying to remember what it was when we started. Not that. It was like, yeah, it was really tough. Yeah. And this is arm care, guys. You know, that's plain and simple.
Definitely.
You know, this is arm care. Yeah, I'm not touching his arm in this session. We'll do that later in the week, but this is just so important to keeping his arm healthy, is just making sure that these ranges and this mobility and his ownership of that mobility is where it needs to be.
Wait till we forevermore.
Just do some work through his spinal erectors. So, you know, his erectors and QLs on both sides. And when you have that quad tightness, you know, that psoas tightness, if you want to call it tightness, and you have that little bit of like anterior pelvic tilt, it's really easy for these erectors to go into like that kind of overactive or hypertonic state. So anytime I do some hip mobility, especially with an athlete with this specific criteria who needs that internal rotation and extension, I definitely like to work through the spinal erectors too, because I find this is very, very commonly a source of tension and discomfort for the athlete too. Beautiful.
Yep, there it is.
That's the spot. So are you getting more tension kind of like a little higher up, like towards this like mid-back? Or are you feeling it like down in here, like more like right there?
Like kind of in between.
A little bit of both?
Yeah.
You know, so what I'm asking him is kind of where he's feeling it more. Is he feeling it more like this thoracolumbar hinge, which is really common? Guys will start losing some of the segmental mobility in their spine, and they'll basically chunk vertebrae together in their movement, and then they'll stress one spot specifically. So a lot of times the spinal erectors can get really lit up at this TL hinge because that's kind of where they're moving the most, and that musculature is being stressed the most. Versus like down in here, trying to ask him about some context between like how his QL feels, or his you know, A is lateral stabilizers, but you know, some of these things kind of tell us where this athlete might be compensating more than the other. So sometimes just being able to ask good questions, kind of pull more out of your athlete context-wise so you can get some more information can really, really help. It helps you be more specific, I think.
You know.
Obviously, like a thick area like this, I don't want to use my thumb too much, but you see what I'm doing is backing my thumb up, okay? So I'm allowing my MP joint and the more distal joint, my thumb, to stay in flexion, and then I'm just kind of backing that up, you know, so I have that small surface area to really hit this QL, but also not crush my own hands while I do it. Last thing we're going to do here is I'm going to finish this up with some instrument work. Really like the handlebar for getting into these QLs. It's super, super effective. It's really easy. It's easier on my body too. And that's where this fan stroke really kind of shines. So, you know, if you almost follow that angle of his ilium, you can kind of just keep this top hand really stable and just kind of range here. And this is really going to give you that nice kind of lengthening, stretching aspect to that QL. And you can, obviously you can take this stroke all the way up into these paraspinals as well. You could also do this in side lying, you know, again, side lying, I think you could really, if you're really trying to target the QL and you really want to get in there with like the knob, definitely put the athlete in side lying, but he's already laying comfortably on his stomach. And he's not so crazy restricted in here that I need to really focus on the cue wall specifically. I just want to give it some love. Cool. How you feeling there, buddy? Okay?
Good.
Good, right?
I feel a release too.
Nice. Beautiful. All right, guys, as we finished up this video for today, I'm almost done with Matt here for this session. So I just want to thank you guys for tuning in and checking out the session sit-in series. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and just leave them down in the description below. Leave me a comment. I will definitely get back to you. If you're not following us on Instagram, definitely check it out, MikeStella_ATC. We can follow AMP on Instagram at AMP_athlete. Check us out online at ampathletes.com/recovery lab for appointment information, just more about what we do. Until next time, we'll try to get some more videos up for you guys, but thanks for stopping by. We appreciate the time you spent, so have a great day.